Hi guys, I'm super happy to have Ryan Eder today with us. And for those of you actually in the industry, I was following him quite frequently and looking at his journey, or basically the startup he built in a couple of years, as a role model for everything we do in German industry. And why is it so? Because Americans are really good in forming the business from user experience. So they always put user in the middle, and we have to learn from that. And this is why I would love to talk to Ryan and get more insights from, basically the pioneer and the on this endeavor.
Well, thank you for having me.
Ryan, and the basic question, like you came from fitness, sport, design industry because you've been working for like behemoths of the sport industry. Like you had like a Nike before in your portfolio. You were designing some stuff for them.
Yeah,
So you also, when I look at your background, you were doing some kind of like I wouldn't say manufacturing, but you were in
yeah,
charge, basically designing the whole e-commerce chain that from China to US, and then suddenly, not only you landed up in medical industries, like very archaic, very sometimes backward thinking industry, but
sure,
also bringing innovation on top of that. So could you walk us through like how did it happen?
sure. Yeah, my background, my training's in industrial design, product design. So like, I went to school at University of Cincinnati here in Ohio, in the U.S. And when I graduated, I got a job at a design firm called Priority Designs in Columbus, Ohio, and that's an agency where we would work with different corporations to help develop and commercialize their products. So that's where I was able to work with companies like Nike and TaylorMade on golf clubs, and then work with medical companies like Ethicon and Stryker for various equipment. And we worked directly with Asian manufacturers on coming up with ideas, licensing them to them, taking them through manufacturing A to Z. So I really was able to get 7-8 years of experience of manufacturing, developing, commercializing different types of products for these large organizations. So I was very fortunate to have that, and that benefited me with Include. It's also that I was moonlighting Include that whole time. So Include Health started as Include Fitness, which started as my senior thesis in design school back in 2006. So I saw what happened. It all was from the lens of accessibility. And so how it started, the spark was I saw a guy in a wheelchair struggle while exercising at a gym. And I had said for my senior thesis, which is like a 10-week project, I just said, hey, I want to focus on making a accessible piece of fitness equipment that could cater to people in wheelchairs, people standing, just everybody, right? So designed this machine, didn't have any digital technology in it. It was just, mechanisms basically, right? And it ended up winning gold best in show and people's choice in the International Design Excellence Awards in 2007. And that created a lot of attention on it. And I had a lot of people that saw it and thought it could help them, and they started reaching out asking where they could get it. And at that point, it was just conceptual, right? So I went back to my school and kind of told them, here's what's going on. And, I literally, my plea was, I want to help people. I need help helping people. And was able to get kind of the first initial dollars to start this journey. And it's a long journey that I can walk you through, but that's kind of how it started. And it's evolved from an accessible piece of fitness equipment to a virtual PT platform leveraging computer vision to deliver care in patients' homes.
Yeah, and I've read some facts that at the beginning you were more into hardware, and then at
Oh,
some point the whole business transitioned towards software-centric design,
yeah.
and you've had to shift your mind. And I don't know, like I would love to. I don't know if you I've seen the presentation that you did with TensorFlow, and if you have it handy, and if you have time to demo this through,
Let's
because
do it.
I really love it. After this, I will stop with a few examples just to share with fellow engineers in the community how we should all think. And exactly like, your perfect marriage of design and user centricity helped actually to build this up.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to pull it up. We could do it. We could do it live. That's the beauty of this technology. And just to kind of frame it up a little bit. So like our platform, was built to be as accessible as possible. And so, I'm always, no matter what I'm designing, you're always just thinking about the end user and how do you make it as intuitive, easy to use, simple as possible. So you're thinking that from an interface standpoint, from a UX standpoint, but then even from how like a delivery distribution perspective. So like when we did this, we said, all right, we want to make it to where this platform is going to run on any device with a front facing camera and a browser. So that's where we made it web based, right? And actually, the way we got in this was through a partnership with Cincinnati Children's, a very prominent pediatric hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio, that got us into computer vision. And we can revisit kind of that transition from hardware to software. But then we started working with the Air Force, and they were the first to get this in late 20. So we started with Cincinnati Children's in 19. In 20, the Air Force got it. In 21 is when we started to collaborate directly with Google. And because what we wanted to do was make it be able to run on everything. But at that time, this type of technology was in its infancy and it was not accurate enough to deliver physical therapy. Certain positions would kind of fall apart and not track. So I reached out to them saying, this is what I'm trying to do. The Air Force has one version with a competitor's model. I want to give it to healthcare, but I need it to run on everything, but I need it to be more accurate. And that's launched a 2-year collaborative with Google. We were featured in their I/O conference in 21. And then we started using this in healthcare later that year in 21. But I'll pull it up. I think it makes it a lot more tangible of what this is. And so I'll share my screen and we'll walk through it. And to set this up, we're going to build a digital plan. I'm then going to show you the patient experience, do some exercises, and then we'll circle back and show you the data that we collected.
Super. So, let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. So let me. All right. You're getting that, so I can get you off so you don't have the infinity loop. So we seem like we're good there, right?
Yes, we're good.
All right. Okay. Now let's start this process. So to kind of frame up what we're going to do here is we're going to start on the clinician side and we're going to create a digital plan and then send it to a patient, pull up the patient, do the experience, and then circle back here to show the data that we collected.
So the journey starts with the visit. So I'm assuming you are my doctor and I'm your patient and I have like some either knee problem or shoulder problem. And I'm saying, Ryan, please help me up. What kind of therapy you could recommend me for this stuff?
Yeah, the journey can start a couple different ways. So, this platform is used in hybrid care where it's kind of used in between in-person visits. We also treat patients directly where it's on virtual only pathways where we have our own physical therapists on staff. And so we'll get like a referral from a doctor or a care navigator. And then we reach out to that patient and schedule a virtual eval, video conference, understand what's going on with them. And then our PTs will create customized plans for them based on their needs. And they do that here in this portal. And this is pretty simple in terms of like you have your activities on the left. We have thousands of exercises, functional tests, and patient-reported outcomes measures that you just mix and match based on the needs. And then they compile in a plan here. And we'll just do a couple simple basic ones. But here you adjust sets and reps, of course. But when it's powered by computer vision, you can adjust range of motion targets. So the squat's an easy one to show. By default, it's 90. I'll drop it to 70 so you can see that on the patient side. What's also nice is our PTs can go in and adjust the delivery cadence of this. So the system is set up where, it runs on any device. It's HIPAA compliant. It's a class 2 registered device with the FDA. And it also has auto reminders based on the activities that are prescribed for that patient. So if you have certain activities scheduled on a Tuesday, you'll get some reminders about that to do it. So you can set these activities, daily, weekly, monthly, or just a one-off date. Once you have that, then you're going to send it to the client, and this client's going to be John Huntington. And you just hit send. And what it does is it takes this plan and all the scheduling parameters, packages it up, and it shoots John a link. Now, John gets that link via text or via email. And I'll pull up the email here to show you that and how easy it is for him to access it. So we'll give it 1 second for it to pop through here. Here it is. Spare you my whole inbox, but so, just comes through right now, right? And these patients can do this on their own device without any sensors, downloads, or passwords. all I got to do is click the link. You click that link, it's going to open up the browser and it's going to pull together this plan. And so here it's going to take a second for download. The only question I don't know is here we go. All right. We got a lot of camera feeds going at once here, so I just wanted to make sure that worked.
So, Ryan, I will just stop here for a second. So what that means for user, he doesn't have to create an account, authenticate himself, put the credit card, put his, I don't know, medical history. All he needs to do is basically click on the link either by email or an SMS or a message, whatever we call it.
Correct. So you just click that link and it's going to pull this up. Now, when we enroll a patient, we have their information, right? So we know their contact information and all that. So we have a bit of that background already in place. But like when it's time to start doing your sessions, like, you know, one of the biggest challenges in healthcare is just all the paperwork you got to do and all, right? So just how do you make it as streamlined as possible? And we treat patients from in their 20s. We treat patients all the way up in their 90s. And so when we were designing this, like I was thinking about it from the lens of my parents, where I know a lot of times it's really hard to remember your Apple ID and password to download an app, right? And those are barriers of just access to care. So that's where we made the very early decision to make it web-based like this, so you just wouldn't have to navigate any of that.
I love it.
And so here you get an overview. We'll have male or female animations just based on who's logged in. And so we'll do 3 exercises and just 2 surveys here. And all they got to do is hit start. Once I do, you're going to hear a voiceover. I'll make sure that volume is up. So I'll kind of talk in between that.
Slightly tilt your screen forward.
Camera feed comes in. We know what device they're on, so we give them tips for camera setup.
Move back so we can see your head and feet.
This is the TensorFlow model. Again, this is all just powered in the web, running off my webcam. There's no sensors or anything like that. We turn the visuals off once we get into it.
Move back so we can see your head and feet.
Because we like the patient to focus on what they're doing, right, and not the technology, but it's helpful for them to understand kind of the magic of how it works. So it wants me to jump back into this white box here. And as I do, you're going to see this loading bar start to increase. Once that loading bar is full, be like, okay, great, I see you, let's continue.
Up next, squat sagittal.
These screens are just rest screens to get the patient acclimated on what they're going to do next.
Stand and face right.
Then I just follow the instructions. So as a patient, this is my right side. If I face the other way, it just won't advance and she'll ask me to turn this way again.
Stand and face right.
As I do, the same loading bar goes. Again, we have machine learning models to help detect exactly, interpolate the key points.
Feet shoulder width apart.
Tips for setup.
Slowly bend knees and return.
Range of motion gauge with a rep counter. Gauge fills as I do my reps. Reps count down as I complete them. Pretty simple. The gauge, though, I can't get credit for reps that don't hit a minimum range of motion threshold. I got to go about halfway and back for it to count. And then if you recall, this is the one where we programmed it to be 70 degrees versus 90. And the way that we show that is that gauge is just full right at 70 degrees. You just want to make everything this simple to do your physical therapy at home. We get to the next one.
And while it's still preparing the next exercise,
Yeah.
I know that in US, roughly 50% of population, they speak Spanish natively. Is that instruction also available in Spanish?
Not yet. We want to. I'm going to try to stop this and see if I can get on my phone maybe. I'm worried about sharing these multiple screens across these browsers. But not yet. So what we want to do, we're working on a couple different things of making it have real life interpretation on those. And again, all of our voice is browser based, right? And so you have to have it real time. We don't depend on anything on servers. And because when you go on servers, you get lag time. And even from the computer vision model, if you went and sent data up for it to interpret it and come back, it doesn't feel like an intuitive, fluid experience, right? And so that's where we try to do everything browser based, which is very limited in terms of the capabilities you have to run all this simultaneously. And then when you have multiple browsers doing different camera feeds, that's what you're seeing here all simultaneously. It starts to kind of get a little angry. So I'm going to try to see if I can maybe show it to you this way. This might be another way of doing it to not have it on the browsers. So I'll show it to you. Let's try this. Share my screen again. Now I pulled it up on my phone, and I'm just mirroring my phone here. So you see that there. Okay, so we can continue it here. So again, this goes across all these different devices, right? And so like
It couldn't get any better.
right. So you have options, right? And so it already marked that I completed my squats. And so like I can go and continue here. You won't hear the voiceover as well, but you'll get the idea. So I'll hit continue session.
Place your device near the ground.
Now it knows I'm on a phone. Functions exactly the same way as computer vision. Now the white frame is the entire screen, but it's the same deal. I move back in here. Loading bar goes, okay, great. I see you. Let's continue, right?
Up next, balance single leg.
And that, that also shows that like patients have different preferences of screen sizes and devices. So
stand and face forward.
Be flexible if you're doing a podcast at the same time. Once be facing you, it's gonna be doing trunk lean.
Bend right knee and hold.
Now this isn't gonna start till I follow that instruction. If I bend my left knee, nothing happens. It wants me to bend my right knee. Once I do, timer comes in. You can see me swaying in the background there in my trunk lean.
5 seconds.
And actually, if I go and lose my balance, timer stops. That's going to show up on the report on the back end. Okay? They can detect that. And so, actually, I think this one we just jump over.
Next,
here we go.
Shoulder abduction.
Now, this is going to be shoulder abduction. It's kind of the same flow.
Stand and face forward.
Once be facing you for my shoulder. And then when we do this, what I point out on the interface standpoint.
Straighten arms, palms forward.
If you recall, when I did it on my phone on the rep counting,
left arm to the side and
it was like a smaller display kind of in the corner, right? But when I'm on a phone like this, I don't have a big area, and I want to make sure it's easy for someone to follow. So like when I get going, it just comes in full screen, just like you saw the timer there. It's just easy for me to follow along, still logs my range of motion, still counts my reps. You can see me moving in the background, right? But it's just how to make these interfaces as intuitive and simple and adaptable as possible, right?
Not next, survey.
And so what we also do is we mix the patient reported outcomes measures. So these are evidence-based surveys and all that we put in. And they just go in and answer these questions, right? And so we can do these for a variety of different body parts. This is how they help mix like the objective adherence and functional outcomes with the patient reported outcomes. So I'm just going to blast through this just so you can see the data on the back end.
Up next, survey.
And then we always like to have context into the pain behind their movement, right? And something the camera obviously can't pick up. And I'll just say hurts a whole lot. So I take that, package it up. And so that session was done on my multiple devices, right? Meanwhile, we collect all this data on the back end. And so to show you that, I'm going to go back to the clinician portal here and show you what we pull up. So just give me 1 second to pull up this report. So this was just done, right? And so this goes in and it has our surveys and so our scores, our roll-up scores, but also our individual answers here. We also have alerts for our PTs like high pain. And you see an alert down here. But what we're also tracking here is like the reps. Did they do all the reps? Did we do the sets that we had? How's the motion quality? What was the range of motion versus what was set for them? And then you can see this is flagged. That's because I lost my balance at 7 seconds. I hit 42 degrees trunk lean. All the data is captured. We also have the ability to capture the video. And so then when our PTs want to see exactly what happened with their own eyes, they can do that, right? So this is exactly what we just saw. So what this really does, and I'll kind of stop my screen share here, hopefully that gives you context and the adaptability of it across different devices, is it lets us deliver personalized measured care anywhere, anytime, and on any device.
Yeah, it's an incredible product. When I watch this, I instantly think that I wish my mom or my dad could have unfiltered access to this kind of rehabilitation in the future. Just to have funny comparison. What we battling here in Germany is a lot of basically privacy concerns issues. Like, for example,
Sure.
I really love the fact that you instantly deliver experience. Well, you deliver therapy right in front of people's eyes without all the fuss of basically creating an account and protecting your account with second factor authentication and stuff like that. And the regulators wants us in Europe. In Europe, it's like all about data. People, obviously everyone is stealing our data. I don't know when they have time for that, but that creates this unnecessary burden to even for the entry.
It does.
And how does it? And the second thing that I really love is basically you have a feeling of always being guided through. And even the little fact that you say, look, I see an avatar raising my arm, but behind the avatar, you still see basically like my silhouette
Yep.
working out. That's also not obvious. This is basically excellence of design thinking. And yeah, this is also the example I wish more engineers would see, that with such a little overlay, you know, you create a feeling that you are doing the mirror function on one hand, but at the same time, you see the proper exercise and audio guides.
Yeah.
And along the way, when you were like building this product and rolling this out, how often did you have to step back, fix? So doing this typical agile approach, like this is what we constantly have to be better with.
Yeah. Endless iteration. So, I mean, years of iteration. So when we switched over to computer vision, we had no idea how to make it work. Let alone the technology behind it didn't work yet, right? So, but we were thinking through. You have to really construct like, okay, where are its boundaries of what it can do, and then what are the stages of walking someone through a program. So, like, we end up calling it like in view, when you get into the view of the camera, and how do you intuitively communicate that to someone. Then we call it like orientation, when we have you go to a certain position, right? And then you got to have ML models that understand. They take in these key points and like, are you actually facing left? Are you sitting and facing here? And you got like laying on the ground, prone, supine, long sitting, all these different positions, right? Then you get into feeding the instructions. Then you get into the actual like range of motion and rep counting. Simple, questions like, do you count up or count down? Why? Like, how responsive do you make that range of motion gauge? What do you show? What do you not? Like, it was we had a team of engineers, but like the design thinking is like, you can fall in love with the technology behind it. But at the end of the day, the end users don't care about that. They care about the experience and how simple it is. And so like a lot of people in computer vision will get really excited about how many key points they have, or want to show these dots the entire time, and it becomes like a distraction. You're like, well, it's not about the dots. It's about you and your movement, right? So how do you strip away the stuff that, yeah, you may be really proud of, but like grandma doesn't care? And you got to kind of have that level of like design. I call it empathy, right? Of thinking about it through the lens of someone else. But every step along the way, you're making all these different changes, figuring out what you think works, and then you don't really know until you put it out in the field and people start trying it and give you the feedback.
Great. And did you have battles with some of your engineers who were in favor of some newest technology, and they were saying, Ryan, this is the next thing in the technology. We need to have it in our tech. And you had to convince them not to over-engineer.
No, one, we have a great team of engineers, and two, like the company's founded on like design principles and design thinking, right? So kind of coming in, we were working with engineers that understood and appreciated that. We're all also like technology nerds at heart, right? And so like we all love like the latest technology, the latest models, and seeing what we can do and how far we can push things. But they've always understood of like, technology is not has zero value unless everybody can use it. Otherwise, there's no point in it, right? So they've been great of being able to really help push the boundaries and figure out how simple can we make all this.
Yeah, you know what when you at the beginning explained me that it's front end heavy, so to say, that once the therapy has been preset and sent to the user, then you mostly rely on the browser ability to serve it well without having some latency, because else if you would send like a request back and forth to your backend, this is what I actually how we build it, like the company that I'm building, Casper Health, because I don't know. We we actually believe that front end needs to be like as stupid as they can, and you only interact with models sent by the
Sure.
backend. But it could be like in cons and pros. But I'm curious,
Sure.
how are you making this uh, front end heavy and still able to record video at the same time? Because behind the scene, you record a video, send it back to your backend. It's basically stored somewhere. I don't know, like we're using Amazon Web Services, so you have to have a storage so that
Yep.
the therapist could then preview this. I mean,
Yeah, it took a lot. It took a lot, and like the yeah. So like going even to the latency point, like we felt it was really important that that gauge is filling up, is mirroring your movement in real time. Like if that thing had a lag to it, the gauge is kind of irrelevant, and then you kind of get confused, like what's happening here. And like rep counting, that's got to count as soon as you complete it. So we felt that was really important to the experience, and by doing that, then you're also able to give the live range of motion feed. Not that everyone's really tracking that while they're doing it, but it adds to the experience. But we also realize that like okay, sometimes data is not enough. Sometimes like you need to understand contextually what's going on with that patient, right? And so we wanted to add the video. So it's actually streaming that video from there. And I believe we're using Cloudflare for it. And so then that's taking that and then serving it right back up. And we also wanted to be able to be instantaneously available on the clinician side. So there's a lot of wiring, and some of the computer vision models out there, are heavier. They have more key points. They take longer to load, all that kind of stuff. And there's a good, healthy conversation out there about like number of key points versus pinpoint accuracy versus accessibility and user experience, right? And so we made the decision that we ran tests on there and it's plus or minus 2 degrees from an accuracy standpoint. When you're delivering care, it's not about whether or not the range of motion is 76 versus 74 degrees. Your main thing you're trying to do is to get these people engaged in their care on a regular basis
I
and get
think,
them
yeah,
moving,
exactly.
right?
Like, the as we know from fitness, how to build a daily healthy habits that are able to repeat mundane task, but as on a regular basis.
Yeah,
And how do you remind people to actually do that? And
sure.
what's out of your experience the best way to build a habit for people to go through the therapy from A to Z or A to whatever B?
Yeah, right. I mean, you have a couple different layers here. So of course you're able to leverage the technology to make it more convenient. If the patient's thinking about going to the clinic and doing their care versus being able to do it at home in the comfort of their own home and privacy, like that helps. You then have accountability. So there is a physical therapy that's on the other side. Your measurements are being tracked, right? And your progress is being reviewed. So it's like, okay, it's not like I'm just going to watch a video. I do this on my own. It's like, no, okay, the PT sees this. And then we also have a whole collection of auto reminders. And so, like on days where you have activities prescribed for you, like in the morning, you'll get like, "Hey, here's your plan. Let's, excited to get you moving." And then, like, if you haven't done it by the evening, it'll send you like, "Hey, let's not forget here." And like, so you'll have a collection of those things to kind of help drive it. Um, when we're treating patients, the patients also have unlimited secure messaging with their physical therapist, and so there's also that connection to it. So that combination really yields really high engagement for us. And that's the end goal, is to get people healthy. You got to get them moving. And so how do you do that as easy as possible?
And the other thing that I would love to touch upon is basically um, what I've noticed at the base of your product, but we haven't talked about this, basically future of rehabilitation, AI. And
Yep.
I've been thinking that what you're doing, you're collecting a lot of data, a lot of valuable data, and you do this at mass, like at scale. And at some point, you could be a lot better than building up the models or basically therapy modules with ability to predict which therapy could work for specific body type, I don't know, blood sugar type,
Sure.
to basically really drive personalized medicine. And when do you think this will be possible?
It's on the horizon. If any, I mean, the goal here is, as you mentioned, it's like personalized, predictive, and prescriptive care, right? Any AI model is only as good as the data it's been trained on. And, there's a whole controversy out there now about, the copyright laws and everything that they're training those models. So if you're looking to train a model like this, you got to feed it quality data. The industry hasn't had a way of collecting quality data at mass. Like right now, it's like you have people using a goniometer in the clinic, right? Or filling out this paper that just goes float somewhere. So your first step is building this large database. And, that's what this system enables you to do. And then once you have that data, you can start to it gets really powerful because you have not just the outcomes data and the demographic data and contextually, but you also have their adherence data. So you now know different cohorts, across broader or individualized of like, okay, I know John likes to do it at 10 a.m. on Wednesdays and Fridays, and you can tailor experience around that to optimize his engagement. And then you can start to look at these cohorts across different diagnoses. You can look at seasonality with it, right? You start to collect all this data. And what's also interesting, and we did this with a Vercells AI accelerator last summer, is that you can also train these LLMs on clinical practice guidelines. So there's all this evidence-based research that gets pumped out into the industry, but it has a very hard time of making it into practice because the PTs can't keep track of all this, and then you implement it through. Well, we were training LLMs on these CPGs, all these acronyms here, right? And so that you could go in and say, okay, here's a data on this patient. Let's create a plan. It will reference those practice guidelines, reference your catalog, propose a plan. The PT still is making the adjustments based on what makes the most sense here, and then sending that off. And this combination, what it does is it dramatically changes the ratio of how many patients a PT can be taken care of, in a day, month, year, right? And it dramatically changes the level of access to care, which is what we're really ultimately trying to do here.
And how difficult it is right now in US to actually get your physiotherapy done?
How, like, just traditional?
Well, if I live in a mid state, I don't know, like or even in a big city, in Germany, for example, we have massive queues or waiting lines.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
would call up for an appointment, you would get an appointment sometime, I don't know, if you're lucky, you would get it next week just for the first visit. And then because they are so busy, they would schedule you weekly visits, and each visit would be 20 minutes each. So
Yep.
effectively, I'm asking myself, I don't know, it's so ineffective. And that's why therapies like, IncludeHealth or what we do, Casper Health, is a future, because you allow people to exercise your therapy independent from time, schedule, location. Uh, but I would, like, I'm just I would love to know your views when the horizon will actually happen. What you described, like, when
Yeah.
we're going to be
Right.
when we're going to be able to, because I think you already collecting enough data. So in, I don't know, a year, 2 years, it's going to be massive database. So with help of some data analysts, data engineers, your model could be probably a lot better than any model out there provided by the traditional medical research.
Yes. I mean, to get that kind of volume of data, you need to have a very concise distribution model and high engagement from the patients, right? And you're talking about the challenges of traditional care. I mean, of course, like virtual care can't do everything, right? You cannot replace hands-on people. Like when you need to be putting hands on people, I just can't replace that.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be for everyone. Some people are going to prefer to go in person. That's totally fine. Basically, we just need more ways of accessing care, period. And the US has the same issues. I mean, it's whether there's a scheduling backlog or just the hours during a day is just so disruptive to your day for work or school or whatever, right? Where, I mean, people will get their physical therapy sessions done with us in the time it would take them just to drive to the clinic. So we need more access to it. As you collect this data, that's where you can like ours is a centralized database, right? So I mean, it's all coming in. You have all this data. You just got to get the volumes there. And so, where we're working, that's really our goal, is trying to form the right partnerships with providers, with health plans, even going direct to consumer and saying, here's a new way of accessing care. Let's get these patients in here so they can start feeling better, right? And then we were able to build this data so we can get better at doing our job at making people feel better.
Ryan, and what do you think about, well, I don't know how it is in US, but in Europe, the medical data or historical data based on your medical activity or any injuries is not shared at all. So we fighting every time, for example, if you would go to one doctor and the other and the third one, the data will be fragmented and will stay
Yeah.
there. And if you would request, I don't know, they would probably give you like some kind of paper. So it's not
Right.
useful. And I'm just dreaming about the future where all my digital data is equal to like a credit history. Like for some reason,
Sure.
credit history is so transparent. People
Right.
collecting this from the moment you were born, but with medical, nothing is shared. So, do you think that it will change soon, or at least will start in US as a pioneering end?
It's a tough one. I mean, it's a tough one because it's you've got the real world concerns around privacy and the, you know, not everybody wants their medical data shared, and some people do, some people don't. There's obviously concerns all around about data being hacked and that information. So you got to be very careful with that. I mean, there's a lot of companies that exist here in the States that are just simply trying to make it to where these data can flow across these institutions. But healthcare is complex, right? We all, from a consumer experience, like hate going in and filling out the same forms over and over and over again. It's like you don't even know me. And sometimes that's happening in the same place you've been before, right? It's a big challenge. And so, I think weaving all that together is going to take a lot of time. You got to do it carefully. I think in the meantime, if you find places where you're able to get enough of patient volume and like if you need that contextual information, how do you make it as easy as possible for them to give it to you? Like this goes down to design. Like again, no one wants to give you the same information over and over. But if I have a real simple interactive thing to go through versus the same black and white paper that you're writing all this stuff down, like even that experience is going to be easier for you if you get that data to then, build that database. The holy grail would be you fill it out once and it's all around and it's secure, but that's a tall order.
Ryan, looking forward in the future from the screen evolution, because it looks like we've been going through big screen, small screen, mobile screen,
Sure.
and everyone is talking. Oh, the next one is going to be the VR screen. They're going to get cheaper. So the whatever the Quest 2 is already like $400. So theoretically, having convenience seeing in front of your eyes therapist or like image of yourself could make us then reshape our technologies, because we would have to then put it
Sure.
on the new screen. As a designer, do you believe it will happen?
I don't. Not at scale. I think it's going to happen for different diagnoses. Like VR and AR, I mean, are both amazing technologies. VR is the ability to get you to feel like you're somewhere else and get your mind off of things or get you doing a certain thing that otherwise you wouldn't be doing, right? Like in these virtual spaces is extremely powerful and has a lot of applications. But when you think at scale, like only now recently is it like you can sit there and like say like, okay, everybody has a device with a camera and a browser. That wasn't that long ago where you couldn't just blanketly depend on that, right? So how long will it take till you can say everybody has a VR headset? I love VR. I've got all the Oculus ones. I've got the Vision Pro. Like I love all the tech, but like it's also then like when you're and there's exercise programs that people can do. For me, it's a tough thing to like think of like my bar is like, well, grandma and grandpa have it. And then will grandma and grandpa like the experience of putting this thing on your head and then moving around and stuff? Like it seems like a tall order. There are going to be certain demographics groups that it's going to be really great for, but I just when you try to think of the scale we're trying to think about, I don't think that's where it's going to go.
Yeah. And Ryan, where do you get your inspiration when it comes to product design? Like when you're looking, okay, which feature I need to look into closely, like, or what are the companies that might be jeopardizing my business model? How do you orient yourself in this space?
Yeah, I mean, it all is contextual to what you're trying to build, right? Like when I'm doing include, I'm looking at interfaces at scale that a lot of people use. And I mean, Apple has always been fantastic where you give a device to a little kid and they understand how to navigate through it. Grandparents understand how to navigate through it. And so, like, one of the things that I found interesting, like, it would reference Apple's CarPlay interface because you are giving an interface to someone that shouldn't be looking at it. And, like, they're driving, right? And how does that work? What size, shapes, colors, like, do you do? And like, if you reference, Apple and like your control panel, you have these little panels. Well, our little panel comes in, right? Like, I mean, there's similarities. Apple's not the only one to do it, but when I think of the end users I'm trying to reach, and so I'm trying to think about interfaces, designs they are familiar with, so it's a lower learning curve for them to get on our platform. And I've always just appreciated minimalistic design, like just where it has like you feel like you couldn't remove a single thing without compromising functionality from it and just really distill down. So there's a few groups out there in design studios that I track that do a really good job at that.
Great. And just to to finish off this technical demonstration, what are if I was a user of IncludeHealth, what could I expect from the company to double down on in the next, let's say, 12 months? Or is there anything like you have in the sleeves that you would say, okay, this is what's going to be happening next?
Yeah, I mean, it is the harnessing the power of AI and to be able to both supercharge the physical therapists so they could effectively treat as many patients as possible and still feel like you're getting your individualized treatment from that PT. And then it's using that to just deliver the most personalized experiences possible, right? And at the end of the day, no one wants to feel like they're just a number somewhere. So how do you take all this technology you have and just like, okay, all right, Ryan, I know exactly what's going on with you. Let's help you get from point A to point B using contextual information. I know you had a rough night's sleep or whatever, so let's do this. And just those really kind of like personalized experiences are really where you want it to go.
Yeah, and yeah, just I quote a lot of time this saying, integrate AI or die for business owners. Would you agree with that statement that the company with AI will have unfair competitive advantage versus those who would still try to outperform traditionally?
Without a doubt. I think I tell people like if you're not following an AI right now, you're already way behind, and it evolves so fast. And the tools that become available, the scale at which you could do things, like I tell the physical therapy industry, it's like technology is your friend, but if you don't befriend it, it will be your enemy. And it's like the tech won't take your job. The clinician that uses technology will, and I think that goes across the board.
One of the first tools that I integrate for every engineer that joins company is Copilot, because I believe like with AI, you could be at least 50% better, faster,
Yeah,
reliable, or more creative. As a designer, I don't like. I'm using Figma. I don't know what you use,
yeah,
but
sure.
what are the like AI enhanced tools you are using on a daily basis and could confidently recommend?
For design, it's a little interesting. Like I don't use AI for like image creation. The Just because it's really hard to completely control. It's kind of soft, and if you can get it somewhere, and then you go in and you're using more of like the AI tools within like a Photoshop or something like that to really kind of get what you want out of it. I use it a lot for just like mind mapping and thinking about things like, okay, I've got this idea for this. Here are the parameters I have, and here's some questions I have. What do you think about this? Now look at it from this lens. All right, now look at this site or this idea. Cross-reference that, and what do you think? Or then I'll take like a spreadsheet that I'm even in and be like, help me extract insights. This is what I'm looking for here. And so I use it more that way. And it's always also nice to just use it as like that 0 to 1 point. Like, all right, I'm trying to create something that's, even copy, right? Like I'm trying to create this copy for this, and I want to have X, Y, and Z. Help me do it within 200 characters or less. And it starts, and then you're always finishing it, but it gets you there much quicker than doing it from scratch.
Thanks a lot for sharing that. And Ryan, to wrap it up, this is the first time I see you without Patagonia black vest, and it's actually not black anymore because you've probably washed it so many times. But some of my friends saying like, if you bought Patagonia, it will stay with you forever. So like until like it's fully torn apart, you're going to be wearing this. But what are your daily healthy habit as a role model in a company, because you are the face of actually? So how do you walk your talk? What is your healthy routines?
I try to do, like, again, it kind of feeds into the space we're in. So like I have all like the technology fitness stuff at home. So I have the Peloton, the tonal, I have the new adjustable bells and all that. So like I wake up around 4:45 every morning to try to work out, and I got my Theragun, stretch me out. So I try to do that. And then I also like, I got into doing ice plunges and ice baths. And so I've got one of those, and I do those afterwards.
Is that thing inflatable or?
Yeah. It's I mean, it's basically just this thing that you have the water and it's got an inflatable rating. It looks ridiculous, but like what happened was I went on a trip to Alaska and went into a natural like cold plunge. They had like mountain runoff, and I always saw it and I was like, yeah, whatever. Went in there and it was just this rush of just like clarity, right? And I was like, okay, well, I can't get here every day, but like maybe I'll try this cold plunge thing. And I have a bad back, and my back always responded better to cold therapy than heat therapy. I was like, maybe it'd be good for that too, and started doing it. And sure enough, like, I mean, it's very therapeutic. And so I try to do that 3 to 4 times a week. If I'm being honest, I'd like to do it 5 to 6 times, but I don't always make that happen.
I'm watching Andrew Huberman. He always talks about like the latest research in the med tech, and it looks like all of this crazy stuff like cold plunge, ayahuasca, I don't know, meditation. It always initiates in US and then basically propagates in the world. So, but I'm very happy that you founded this company and made it big and made it successful, and also playing as a role model, especially from engineering point of view, for many of us around the world who also try to build similar experiences. And I'm going to be watching you close and follow your company. And thanks a lot for sharing this valuable information.
No, that means a lot. I appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity to be on.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ryan. And see you next time.
All right. Sounds good. Take care.